TAG also is the Alliance Group. TAG is for short. I am studying psychology currently. I am on a journey to becoming a clinical psychologist. And this program is really important to me because listening to Juju's podcast has grown my spiritual practice beyond what I ever thought it would turn into. So I'm really grateful for the work that she does. And I'm excited for you all, who already know about Juju's work to, learn more. And for all of you who are just now learning about Juju, to have your mind blown and be really excited and open for what you're going to receive today. Yeah, I am a young Black queer woman and non-binary person, depending on how I feel that day, from Chicago. And when I think about my family and the different things that I've seen growing up, connecting back to African traditional religions has really helped me grow and heal past a lot of that trauma. And that's also why being here is really important for me. And I assume for you all as well. I won't assume, but I hope for you all as well. And so, yeah, we've already kind of done introductions in the chat. A lot of, and we can do this throughout the event. Feel free to share your name, your pronouns, and if you're a student here, why not share your classification and what you're studying, but also, most importantly, why you are excited to be here today. And so next we will introduce Jujube. I am gonna go ahead and read Juju's bio. Sam, affectionately known as Jujube, is a proud Black millennial woman from Baltimore, Maryland, with ancestral roots in West Virginia, South Carolina, and Alabama. A spiritual advisor, medium, Kunti conjurer, hoodoo practitioner, artist, and bae, she believes liberation is attainable with support of our ancestors leading the way. Jujube is an advocate for Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks returning to our ancestral ways of living, thriving, and being in community through herbs, with spirit, and gathered together. Juju is the host of A Little Juju podcast and founder of Jujube, your favorite internet resource for all things Black ass spirituality. It is in her destiny to support and love on Black people, to help us all tap into our own innate powers, to successfully manifest our own realities, in order to successfully manifest our own realities. Sam is a proud Spelman College alum with a bachelor's degree in psychology. So I would like for you all to join us in welcoming Jujube. And we are going to go ahead and get started. Whenever you're ready, you can just take over, share your screen, and we can go from there.
Hi everyone! Thank you for the warm intro and welcome. I feel so special. Let me share my little screen. Okay. Am I sharing? Can y'all see this? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Like share. Is it sharing? Can we see? Okay, cool. Y'all, so just briefly, hi, thank y'all so much, Miss McNally and Brianna for the intro. I'm really excited for today. As Trinice was saying, please hit the chat up, please ask questions, please stop me. If you have been in here, a few people I've seen, I remember your names from being in other classes, so you're going to be like, oh, I know this. So feel free to also help people out if like, oh, I don't know what she meant by this. If I got some students in here, we're learning together. This is a community, so we're all going to learn together. Stop me. It's okay. Sometimes I can get a little deep. I'm going to try to keep it brief. This is an intro. I was trying to put everything in here, and I'm like, okay, let me just scale it back. So I pray that you all will be able to follow. And yeah, let's just get started. So, see now I'm a little okay, view, present, okay. So here we go, exploring Afro-based religions. An introduction to ancestor veneration and religions of the African diaspora. So I know that the title of this is about African traditional religions, but we're actually going to talk about a little bit of religions that may not be traditional to Africa, but are based in African ideas, African thought, but are throughout the diaspora, because we are all, well, assuming if you are a Black person, descended from African people. And so we worship and pray in different ways. So we're going to talk a little bit about those experiences as well. Okay. So who am I? We got the bio. I'm a psychic, I'm a medium. I've been practicing hoodoo. I'll talk a little bit about what that is since 2016 intentionally. I'm an Aborisha, which means I venerate the Orisha. I'm also a few other things in the tradition, but we'll talk about that. An ancestral healer. I practice Reiki as well, and I'm the host of a Little Juju podcast. Okay, so my hopes and dreams for you today, I have many, but some of them are you'll be able to have some examples of different African traditional religions and religions of the diaspora. You'll have examples of just some modern ways that we practice rituals of things that we can do now and maybe already do that we never attributed to, like, oh, maybe that's something old. Maybe that's a ritual from our ancestors. Hopefully you will have a baseline understanding of ancestral veneration, who are our ancestors and how we uplift them. And then a little bit about Christianity and how we can correlate African traditional religions to Christianity. Because I think it's important to talk about Christianity when we talk about religions regardless, because that's probably the religion most of us have the most interaction with. Yep. Okay, so some helpful terms to know. We're keeping it real simple and basic. ATR, what is an African traditional religion? We keep talking about it. It's in the title of this. What does that mean? So an African traditional religion, or ATR, is an indigenous spiritual tradition, a religion that is rooted in Africa and African thought and power. And so there are hundreds and thousands of ATRs. If you imagine at one point when all of our ancestors were back on the continent, in different countries in the continent, we were in Ghana, we were in Nigeria, and even throughout those countries, there were smaller tribes within those. They all had religions. They all had ideas about the world. They all had ways that they dealt with stomach aches. They all had ways that they prayed. They all had ways that they were with each other. So African traditional religion is how they prayed, how they worshiped, how they worked the plants and the medicine, the herbs and the spirit at that time. Okay, so there are numerous African ethnic groups, and they had complete medicinal systems integrated thoroughly into a religious complex. So when we think about ATRs, there's really no separation between, the physical body, the spirit, the emotion. It's all working together. So an African traditional religion is not just addressing our spiritual health, but it can also address our physical health. It can address our emotional health. It can address our communal health, because there's no separation in them. Okay, so that is what an ATR is. Now I'm going to do that. So a DTR or ADR, see, I never know how to quickly view, girl, what? Okay, so a DTR ADR is an African diasporic religion or a diasporic traditional religion. So these are the religions and ideas and medicines from Africa that have been carried over into all the places that our displaced and enslaved African people were taken. So we have Obeah in Jamaica, we have Voodoo in New Orleans, we have Santeria in Puerto Rico. We have all these different religions that sort of branched out from African traditional religion. And it's not quite African traditional religion because it had to be changed up a little bit. It's how our ancestors used being in a new place to practice their indigenous traditions, to practice their ATRs. So again, there's so many of these. I'm not even gonna scratch the surface and talk about how many there are, because there's so damn many, because there's so many different tribes of people with different belief systems. Okay. So another point that we need to know, I keep talking about ancestors. Who are they? So our ancestors are our family, those we are related to, those we've been close with, or a collective group of spirits who have passed on, who have died, who have transitioned, who have moved on to the ancestral realm. Some of us may call it heaven, but just have went on to the other side. So for example, if you have a grandparent who may have passed, that is your ancestor. You have been descended from them. If you have a deceased parent, that is your ancestor. But also we have collective ancestors, maybe people that we're not related to, like Harriet Tubman. She's somebody that we talk about a lot. That is our collective ancestor. We may not be related to her by blood unless, Harriet's descendants are on a call with that. But that's still an ancestor. And ancestors can also be people who aren't blood related to you. I think it depends really who you ask and what lineage. But I do like to look at ancestors as like, if my stepfather dies, I will consider him to be my ancestor. We don't have any blood relationship, but he's someone who came into my life and took care of me and loved me. So I would still treat him as someone and venerate him as an ancestor of mine. Okay. Okay, so ancestor veneration, I just said venerate. You're like, what does that mean? Okay, so it's the process of spiritually, I said but it's actually and physically worshiping, elevating, and uplifting those who came before us to continue their legacy. And I know that's a bunch of words, but we do ancestor veneration already, whether you are, you practice an ATR or DTR and you have an altar and you do all these things and you pray to your ancestors, or if you have ever poured out liquor for a homie, or you've seen someone pour libation. That's a way that our people have always traditionally honored ancestors. I'm from Baltimore. So in Baltimore, you consistently, where there's a lot of murder that happens, particularly in the streets. And so sometimes you'll see things like on the right here, this was Destiny Harris, who actually was murdered not far from where I live. And so people came out, they put the balloons out, they spray painted the sidewalk, they put candles out. So we're venerating Destiny's spirit by doing that. So those are forms of ancestor veneration that may not seem all, woo-woo. It's just everyday things that we're used to. So I'm sorry, so through libations and through creating shrines for our dead people. These are throwback. I don't know. Actually, no. Recently, when I was in South Carolina, I saw somebody who had an RIP t-shirt on. I know that's a little throwback, maybe like 90s, early 2000s. But again, I think it's a good example to uplift, to show you that we already venerate our ancestors. We already keep people close to us who have died and who have passed on. So RIP t-shirts and loving memory t-shirts are ways that we do that in modern day. And it's old, right? This is something that is not new. We didn't make up. This is an ancestral idea. Because we care about our ancestors, we uplift them. So wondering, can you all think of some more examples of ancestral veneration? And you can put them in the chat. And then let me see how I can get back to the Zoom so I can see what y'all saying. What's the way that I am so not Zoom savvy? Okay, here it is. Boom. Chats. There we go. Lighting candles to remember those who have passed. Ashe. Anyone else? Playing their favorite music and dancing and thought of them. I love that. I know there's certain songs that I hear that I think about my grandpa, or songs that he used to sing. So I love that one. Creating spaces in our homes to revere them. Pictures. Yes, Ashe. Putting out a cup of water for them for offerings. Tattoos. Yes, tattoos. That's such a good one. I never think about tattoos. Absolutely. Yes, tattoos. Cooking foods they love and serve as offerings. Yes. In Jamaica, we have a celebration called Night Night in honor of the dead. Yes, Night Night. I have to look that up. I've never heard of that. Oh, Nine Night. Yes, Nine Night. Also, 9 is the number of the ancestors, and I've never heard of that. So Ashe. And balloon releases. Yes, going to the gravesite, putting flowers down. Okay, y'all don't need me. Y'all got it. I'm about to end it. Y'all don't need me. Y'all got it. So this is really good. Exactly, y'all. So we do ancestral veneration. Again, whether it's your first time hearing about it or you're a practitioner, we does this, okay? Because it's in our blood. I'm like, okay, there we go, boom. So here's some other examples I'm gonna blow through. Pictures of loved ones who have passed in the home. Someone said that, building altars and shrines, pouring liquor for the homies, libation, going to the location where somebody passed and memorializing it through teddy bears, balloons, crosses, RIP shirts. Remembrance tattoos, boom, there we go. Naming children after the deceased. Saying a family member is watching over you. So this idea that they didn't really go anywhere because they didn't, keeping family heirlooms, vigils, and funerals. Perfecting and continuing to make recipes of people who have died. I'm trying to perfect my grandmama's salmon cakes. I got to do them just like her. Following dreams to make your deceased loved one proud. Money. We have a bunch of old dead white people on our money. Whether we want to venerate them, ancestral veneration is all around us at every point. And naming streets, foundations, marathons, buildings after deceased people. That is how we venerate our ancestors. It is embedded, deeply embedded in our culture. Okay, so why do we care so much about the ancestors? Jeez, it's because they are our foundation. We are quite literally a compilation of hundreds of thousands of people who came before us, right? Like literally, their blood is running through our veins. So when we acknowledge our foundation, we strengthen our lineage, right? And because energy is neither created or destroyed, even after we lose someone to death, they really haven't gone anywhere, y'all. Like we can still access them for advice. We can access them for protection. We can access them for clarity. They're still rooting for us. And that is a grounded part of what it means to practice an ATR and a DTR. Our ancestors ground us in this. There's a whole bunch of spirits. There's a whole bunch of Orisha, depending on whatever you practice. But ancestors are always going to be the first ones that we go to. Okay, so let's get a little bit deeper into ATRs and ADRs. This is the Dekanga symbol of the Congo cosmogram of the Congo people. This is an explanation of a life cycle. Just wanted to put that in there. Okay, so some common beliefs across ATRs, DTRs. This is a non-exhaustive list, and of course, there's going to be changes because again, there's hundreds and thousands of ATRs, but these are some common ones that show up in a lot, right? So monotheistic God, one God. I know a lot of people think about ATRs and they're like, you know, there's all these deities and spirits and you're leaving offerings. It has to be polytheistic. No, a lot of times it really is a belief in one God, but God expresses themselves through different entities, through different spirits, through different almost like lower gods, right? But really there's one creator, typically in ATRs, DTRs. This is not for everyone. And ancestral foundation, again, ancestors first and foremost, always. The importance of plants and nature as deity, honoring the land. A lot of them are nature-based practices, so caring a lot about what is happening in the world on the land. Next is counterclockwise circle dancing. And I know that's very specific, but the ways that people emote, to the ways that people move their bodies, a lot of times there is a circular sort of dancing that happens in a lot of these traditions. Animal sacrifice. I know sometimes people are like, animals die. Yes, animal sacrifice is important because a lot of times, essentially it's animals sacrificing their lives for us to be able to do a type of work, to be able to get through some type of situation. So we appease the spirits through a sacrifice of an animal, and we treat the animal well. The animal's taken care of. It is sacrificed like very humanely, and it is often sacrificed and then it is eaten, is shared in the village. So it's not just a sacrifice and then it's over, but depending on how it is sacrificed, it is then food for the people in the community. So again, emphasis on community is very important in ATRs, DTRs. Respect for elders. We love the elders. We look to elders. Elders are often the ones that people go to get advice and clarity. Herbal, spiritual medicine. So again, we love nature. We love the plants, but we know and understand that the plants have different properties that are not just medicinal, but also spiritual. Okay, possession. So our bodies being able to host spirits. So spirits being able to give us messages, spirits being able to take over our bodies. And we see possession, maybe if you grew up Kojic or something, I'm sure you've seen some people catch the Holy Ghost. It's the same thing. Divination, I'll get into that. Oh, I said ancestors. Water ritual. So really needing water, looking to water for clarity, being able to cleanse ourselves through water. And the spiritual cause of malady. So things that happen that may be negative in our lives, they don't just happen. Sometimes there's a spiritual cause and it can be addressed in these traditions. Like, why do I keep having this thing happen? Well, you could get a reading and we can see what's happening spiritually in your life and how we can address it so that those things stop happening or mitigating those issues. Okay, so divination, very quickly, it's very common in ATRs. It means being able to talk to spirits. It's a systemic and systematic way to communicate with spirits. So not just making things up, but learning how to use cards, learning how to use pendulums, learning how to throw bones, use coins, etc. Opele, Ifa, Obi. So these are all just different tools and ways to connect with spirits. So if I have a question, I know I can use my pendulum, and if it's going this way, that means yes, do this. If it's going that way, it means no. So this is a way that our ancestors created that we're able to use, particularly in different religions, traditional religions and diasporic religions, to get answers and clarity, because we didn't come here to have a messed up life. We came here to get the best out of it. So we need to check in with spirit sometimes and be like, why is this going on? And we can pull, and our ancestors teach us that we can pull cards or use whatever tool to be able to get those answers and clarity. Okay, so I'm a hoodoo practitioner, so I have to talk about hoodoo. First, because it's so important for me, particularly as a Black American person. So hoodoo, what is that? It is variously defined as the following: the folk, spiritual, controlling, and healing tradition originating among and practiced primarily, but not exclusively, to captive African Americans and their descendants, primarily in the Southern United States. Excuse me, Ralph Arcuna says, I'm sorry, that was from Katrina Hazard Donald from the book Mojo Working. And Ralph Arcuna says, hoodoo is the indigenous medicine and psychiatry of the Black Americans. So we talked about earlier how our ancestors were in Africa, they were minding their business, they were captured, enslaved, quite frankly, tortured. And those of our ancestors who were brought to the US, those of our ancestors who were brought to the South, i.e., my roots, South Carolina and Alabama and Virginia's, again, they had medicines, they had ways that they prayed, they had ways that they talked to God, they had ways that they connected to spirit. Those didn't just go away because they moved to a new place. They just had to rework it a little bit. Like, okay, we're on a different land, we're around different people, we're doing different things. So hoodoo is sort of the culmination of all of that together. It's the ideas sort of rooted in Africa, but also being in the West now, and how we have to change some things up to pray a little bit different here and to do our work a little bit different. So that's hoodoo. So it's healing, it's aiding wounds with local plants. Hoodoo is about delivering children, because we know in the South, if you're enslaved, you didn't have the best doctors caring for you. Our ancestors often were not treated like human beings. So it was also a form of liberation. It was a way to get free. Like, I know, and I can study the plants that are around me. Oh, this earring doesn't want to have it, and that's okay. I can study the plants around me to know what plants I can use to poison my slave master. I know what plants I can give the livestock so that they don't have a good season, right? So that my master doesn't have a good season. I know what roots to carry around me to protect me from evil, to protect me from the devil, to protect me from witches, to protect me from white people, right? Who are traumatizing me and separating me from my family. It can protect me physically. There are some roots and prayers that can be said to keep you from being beaten, to trick your master, to keep from being sold. And then there's roots and herbs and material used for good luck and monetary gain. So again, hoodoo and a lot of ATRs and DTRs are able to address all the different things that are happening in our lives. And that's how our ancestors use it to protect themselves, to fight, and to heal. Okay, so some practical hoodoo that you may know, like, well, I don't know anybody who practices hoodoo. You might practice hoodoo and you don't even know. So if you've ever heard of eating black-eyed peas on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, if you've ever heard of eating collard greens or cornbread on New Year's, that's some hoodoo stuff, y'all. Black-eyed peas represent having a prosperous year. Collard greens represent money and the energy of wealth. So if I eat prosperity, I'm eating wealth, so I have a good year, so I'm able to take care of my family. Cornbread is sweet. Our ancestors saw that as a way to sweeten our year. So you have cornbread on New Year so that your year is sweet, that you have good things happen, that you're happy. Cleansing the home on New Year's, or just cleansing the home, spring cleaning, right? Using a broom to get out. It's not just about cleaning physically, because again, we remember it's not just about the physical. It's never just the physical. There's always a spiritual component to it. So with spring cleaning, we're cleaning on New Year so that we have a pristine year, that we're getting out all the negative energy that could be around. We're removing the stagnancy from our space. That's why cleaning a lot of times is very important to Black folks, and being clean. It's not just about physically being clean, but we got to remove any type of bad spirits, any type of mess, any type of stagnancy, negativity out of our homes. So hoodoo was and is a healthcare system, justice system, spiritual system, social system, psychological system, etc., just as many ATRs and DTRs are. I just want to check the chat because I know I have just given a lot, and I want to make sure folks are good. Yes, ring shot. Okay. Oh, y'all good. Perfect. Y'all following me? Hope y'all following. Okay. So not going to get too deep into this. This is probably a little bit 201, but I wanted to throw it in here because I don't practice a Congo religion, though I have ancestors who come from Central Africa who were Congo. And my Congo spirits are very strong. So I just wanted to show some similarities between Congo religions and people of the Congo to hoodoo to really just illuminate the fact that we didn't lose these traditions. We did not lose them. They are still here. So through in the Congo, particularly in Palo, the belief in a supreme creator, in hoodoo, or in what we know now, particularly in the US as Black folks, it's God. It's one God, it's the supreme creator. The secondary divine force being ancestors and spirits in both of these. Nature being a deity, the importance of the land. So we have different tools that we're using in the Congo that we use in hoodoo, mojo bags, talisman, good luck charms. If y'all ever seen like chicken foots, rabbit's foots. I know back in the day, they used to sell rabbit's foots like at 7-Eleven and stuff, and you would just carry. You just knew it was for good luck. That's some hoodoo stuff. Okay, so the main practitioners being the Nganga healer, always having someone that we look to spiritually. Often, some of us, if you're Christian or grew up in Abrahamic tradition, you look to a preacher, you look to a priest, you look to whoever was the elder in that community for your spiritual healing. Primary motive being protection and liberation, being unenslaved, and the focus always being on community, whether you're in a church, a mosque, or the Ile, which is the house in the Orisha tradition. It's about community and people and being in community with each other and taking care of each other. So we ain't lost nothing. We ain't lost nothing. So I want to show another example of how spirit work has been used, and I have to uplift Vodou. And when you talk about Vodou, you have to talk about the Haitian Revolution. Shout out to all my Haitians on the call. If there's any Haitians here, the Haitian Revolution went on from 1791 to 1804, August 21st, 1791 to January 1st, 1804. And the first place that marked the catalyst of the Haitian Revolution was at a site called Bois Cayman, which is the Northern Mountains in Haiti. And there, that is where they did a Vodou ritual where the spirits came down and said, look, what's going on here with the French? So we're going to get free. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to fight. This is what we need. This is what you don't need to do. It's going to last this long, like the spirits came down. Bookman Dutty led the ritual, and Mambo Marionette was possessed. Remember, we talked about possession, spirits taking over our bodies. So this Mambo was possessed with the spirit of Urzili Danto, who is a Loa. A Loa is a deity in the Vodou tradition. And she was possessed with the spirits of Urzili Danto. And Danto is the one who communicated, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to fight, and you're going to be able to get out of this situation. So a black pig was sacrificed. We talked about animal sacrifice, being able to appease the spirits so that we get what they want, so that we get what we want. They get what they want. We get what we want. A black pig was sacrificed, and the rest is history. Of course, Haiti has a very, very in-depth, that could be a whole conversation that we talked about on its own, and spiritually what happened. But we do know that they won. We do know that they won. And so historians note this happening, this Vodou ritual happening, being the central reason for Haitian political independence. So we have to give thanks and honor to Haiti for showing us the power of spirit and listening to spirit in order to literally get themselves free. Now, Vodou is different than voodoo, but both very important. Now, Vodou is an ATR. It is. It's 101. Just follow me. But voodoo is local to New Orleans. A lot of people think about voodoo. If you've ever been to New Orleans, you see all the shops and what is this? Voodoo. So voodoo is local to spiritual practice in New Orleans, Louisiana, but it descended from Haitian voodoo and merged with Catholicism because there's a lot of Catholics in Louisiana and New Orleans specifically, and there was a lot of Haitian folks that were brought to Louisiana, and so things have to shift and change. The merging of all those religions created a new religion, essentially, which was voodoo. And so that is what voodoo is. Now, unfortunately, with voodoo, it's probably one of the most exploited African diasporic religions in Western media, because a lot of times, I'm sure when you hear voodoo, you don't think about healing, you don't think about liberation. You probably think about, you know, dolls that harm people. You probably think about negativity, demonization, or just consumerism. Like when you go to New Orleans, you know, I don't know how many active, real practitioners are there. When you go to Bourbon Street, you can just get a little fake toy, a little fake oil and stuff. It's just about marketing. But this is a very real tradition that people practice that heals folks. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about Ifa. So I practice Ifa as well. Ifa is a monotheistic religion that was born out of the Anago, also known as the Yoruba people in Nigeria. So Ifa is a divinatory system. Remember, we talked about divination, the process of being able to tap in, check in to spirit to get clarity on our lives. So Ifa is that system. It holds the secrets of life that are accessible through Odu and Orumila. It's okay, we don't need to get into what they are, but that is how you access the secrets, through that divination. So it's the science. Ifa is a study of nature and its meanings, the meanings of life, the meanings of nature. And so through divination, mysteries can be revealed that help individuals find alignment in their own lives and step into their destiny. Ifa. So even throughout Ifa, there are so many different Orisha. I'm sure you may have heard of them. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Orisha in pop culture. But the Orishas are intermediaries between you, the divine, so Olodumare, God. Orisha are not gods, though, or God, but expressions of God. Just like humans are expressions of God. The land is an expression of God. Everything around us is an expression of God. But the Orisha, they have a lot of ashe, or power. So they have a little bit more power than humans would. So we go to our Orisha to get clarity. Even though they're not God, they kind of, you know, it's almost like I don't need to go to God directly because I got an Orisha. Orisha can go to God for me, or the Orisha can make things happen for me. I think of it as I ain't even gonna bother God with my little problems. I'm gonna go to the Orisha about it. So, but Orishas really, they make understanding divinity tangible through our human mind. So there's different Orisha over different things. So there's an Orisha over thunder and lightning. How can we understand the energy of thunder and lightning? How we interact with that energy? We understand that part of nature through Shango, right? Who is an Orisha. And so we see Shango, we see a man who's charismatic and strong and attractive, but you don't want to piss him off too much, almost like the energy of war. He's also a spirit of war, a spirit of thunder and lightning, right? So that's how we're able to understand life through the Orisha. So that's really what they are. So they're vast and full of mystery, and no presentation can fully encapsulate all that the Orisha are. But the Orisha just help us understand our lives, help us understand things that are going on around us. I hope that was clear. So a lot of us may have heard of the Orisha Oshun. A lot of people have said that Beyonce, well, at one point that Beyonce represented Oshun in this particular performance. But since this performance, Beyonce has been very vocal in her worship of and practice in venerating Oshun. And, you know, it's rumored that she might be a priest actually of Oshun. I don't know, but it's a rumor and I would believe it too. She references Oshun a lot in her music and in her songs. And Oshun is the Orisha of love, of prosperity, of beauty, really the energy of attraction. She is the spirit of sweet waters meaning rivers, so waters that don't have salt, not salt waters, that's Yemoja or Yemaya. But she's the divinity of love, you know, fertility. And so a lot of people love Oshun because those are all the yummy things that we really like. So she's very attractive. She's the energy of attraction. So a lot of people who are familiar with Orisha tradition are very familiar with Oshun. I also just wanted to put this random picture of Usher because I found it and I was like, he got a lekes on. You see, these are like our sacred beads that we wear, our protection beads. that we wear if you're a part of this tradition, that you had to go through a ceremony to receive. And so I was like, oh, Usher, okay, Usher. You see Miss McNally has on in the lake as well for Obatala. So, you know, there's just different things that we do and wear that you, if you are in the tradition, you see little things on people like, hey, you might, you know, so just pay attention when you're out or see people. You might be able to say, oh, that might be a practitioner of the Odisha tradition, or they practice E5. Again, Jay-Z, apparently he has rapped and made references to Shango. That is the deity that I talked about earlier, the Odisha I talked about earlier, of war and thunder and lightning and charisma. This is a depiction of Shango here. And then I want to show a clip of the Shango Festival. Let me see where I am in time, because I be talking. Okay, we might be okay. Okay, good. If Brianna or Miss McNally could do a time check for me, that would be great, because y'all know I will
You're
go.
good.
Okay, okay, cool. So I'm just looking at the chat now. Oh, I see someone asked, why does voodoo have a bad name? We're gonna get into that a little bit, but if someone could answer that question, why do you think voodoo has a bad name? What could be some reasons that happen? But we're definitely gonna get into a little bit of why some of these practices have been demonized. Yes, Future with Aleka is on, child. I'm gonna save my comments about Future with Aleka is on to myself. Okay, so let me show you all the Shango Festival. So this is a festival that happens in Nigeria to venerate the Orisha Shango. So I'm gonna start it at 1:20, so you all can see how powerful this work is, how powerful the Orisha is. This is real. It has not been edited or nothing. This is just, oh, child. This is just what goes on.
With majestic and royal poise.
And this woman will also just give us a little bit of clarity.
Aye, the material life and the invisible worlds. Aye and Orisha. So it means that everything that you can see, there's a spirit that you cannot see. So Eledumare, when he created the earth, he sent the Irumale into the earth to complete the earth. So Shango was among the Irumale. His function was to create the thunder and the rain and the lightning. After the earth was complete, they went back to heaven. But all Irumale, they came as a human being as well. So the second son of Oranya was the first Alafi of Oyo, and Ibon Dada Jaka was the second Alafi, but Dada Jaka didn't have the power to fight. So his brother Telo Oko, who was known as Shango, he was a warrior, and he took over. 7 years that he was an Alafi, he became a phenomenon, because he would fight without gangs. With his Oshe, he would take the light, the energy from the thunder to fight his enemies.
I think something's going on with the volume, Sam.
You can see.
Now we can hear. I don't think folks could hear the last 20 seconds.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay. Well, it's mostly visual now.
As a race, it's imperative that we preserve our heritage. It's our identity.
So I'm sorry you all couldn't hear. At the beginning, the woman was just really explaining who Shango was, and it was a lot of different terms that she was using that may be unclear today. But she was just explaining Shango, and Shango actually having been a real person who was a king who ruled in Nigeria. But what I really wanted to show you all was this ritual, that celebration of Shango that was happening. Earlier we talked about possession. Some people call it mounting. rot in the spirit, whatever. But when the spirit takes over, or the Orisha in this case, taking over your body, and humans being able to do very unhuman-like things, because in that moment I'm not going to say they're not human anymore, but their body is being a host for a whole deity, for a whole spirit. And so we witnessed this person who was there venerating Shango, who was of fire as well. And so this person was literally able to be completely engulfed in flames, come out, dance a little bit, jump around, go back in the fire, roll around in it, and be completely unscathed. Why? Because that was Shango, right? So these traditions are very, very, very powerful. And I think sometimes, depending on the Christian tradition and background that you come from, you may have seen someone completely be engulfed in spirit. They may not have like rolled around in fire. I mean, depending on where you people from, but in church, maybe they started praying over you, or they started saying things about you that no one knew, or that you've never shared with anyone before. Sometimes they call them prophecies or prophets, right? People who have been taken over by the spirit because of music, and they start speaking in tongues, right? They're saying languages that we don't know, but maybe someone is there and able to interpret and translate that. That is all African, that is all part of these traditions. So whether it's Shango, or whether it's an ancestor, or whether it's, the Holy Spirit, spirits can still kind of work through us and move through our bodies in very, sometimes intense ways, and ways that with our human mind don't seemingly make sense, right? But we have so many examples of how it can happen. Just checking the chat out. Oh, okay. We're going back to, this is actually a really, really good transition. So Robbie, shout out to Robbie. Hey, boo. So the question about why is voodoo considered bad? Colonization. Our oppressors made us fear our own religion so we wouldn't practice them. They knew how powerful our traditions are. I was talking to a friend last night, and he was watching a video of somewhere on the continent. They were doing some type of ceremony, and the people were being possessed by the spirits. The spirits were coming down. And I think the person was like, they got cut in their hands, or like it was a machete to the wrist or something. And it just completely healed back up, because again, they're spirits, right? And he was like, I would have been scared too if I was white and I came over and I saw people cutting themselves and wasn't no blood with machetes. So it's not completely funny, but it was just like, these are powerful. So if you're going into a new place as a colonizer, you're going into a place, you're completely taking over the land, and you see people praying you don't understand, praying in ways you don't understand, emoting in ways you don't understand, doing in their brains unnatural and unhuman-like things, you're going to want to snatch that away from them. You're going to want to say, that's evil. I don't understand it. That is demonic. That ain't happening. That ain't happening. This is this is another religion we're going to give you, that we can understand what you're doing, so that we know you're not trying to organize against us, right? Kayla Jackson said, because it is Black, anything involving our own liberation and power, they want us to be scared of. Chastity said, I think voodoo gets a bad name because of its commercialization, and because along with other ATRs, white people, colonizers are afraid of its intrinsic power and its ability to liberate us, those of us who they wish to oppress. Ashe. Y'all got it. So,
with majesty.
So let's talk a little bit about ATRs and Christianity. So there was a mass conversion to Christianity after the emancipation of enslaved people in 1863 in the US. Now, a lot of people, and this is a little gripe of mine, talk about our ancestors all became Christian because, they were just scared and they just assimilated, and that was it. They never questioned anything. The colonizers, slave owners were like, you just need to be Christian. They was like, okay, Messa, I'm gonna be Christian, And I really reject that idea that they just assimilated and went along with Christianity, right? First of all, we have to remember that some folks were actually Christian prior to colonization. Don't think we talk about that enough, but particularly in the Congo, a lot of our ancestors, if you have Congo ancestries, which a lot of folks probably do, particularly actually a lot of folks have Congo ancestry. A lot of our Congo ancestors were practicing Catholics. They were practicing Catholics, and they weren't practicing Catholics because of enslavement. Now there was, because of the Portuguese coming in, the Portuguese were like, hey, we got this thing called Catholicism. It's kind of cool. Like it could protect y'all a little bit. And actually the queen at the time of the Congo was like, okay, we'll see. We'll make that our religion of the Congo state, but we're still going to practice what we practice, but we're also going to incorporate that too, because it seems cool what y'all talking about, right? So every transition into Christianity wasn't particularly violent. So there were people who came over who had Christianity and were very familiar with it, more of indigenous Christianity, but still Christianity. Now, when we're talking about Christianity, now that we practice the one that is deeply problematic, it was not necessarily a passive acceptance into Christianity. People use what was presented to be strategic. If you are an enslaved person, you are in new land, you're trying to figure out how to hold on to your indigenous beliefs and traditions in this new place. You don't have access to the same things that you did before, but you recognize that there's a Bible, and in this Bible, there are things in it that, one, I'm learning how to read, which is going to be a strategy for me. I should know what's happening around me. I should know how to read. So the Bible was used as a tool to read, but also even after enslavement, and just throughout Black and particularly Black American history, the Bible, they saw the Bible as a book of spells, as a book of prayers, as a book of, okay, I know that I can read Psalms 144 and speak victory over myself, right? There's a prayer of Psalms 144 of victory over our enemies. So I'm going to use the Bible because that's what I have access to be strategic in what I'm doing now, right? We also know that churches were seen as sanctuaries. Churches were seen as meeting places. Churches were places that ancestors planned rebellions. Churches were places where people communed with each other. You might not have been able to do that, on a plantation or even after enslavement, or as a sharecropper, but you could do it in church. And so churches really were spaces of resistance for a lot of our ancestors. You can read, I think it might have been Nat Turner's rebellion, Stonewall Rebellion. A lot of them started and were planned in churches or in the praise house first. A lot of those rebellions and resistance movements that happened after being in deep prayer, or after having had a dream that was otherworldly and spirits and a God coming to these individuals and saying, y'all need to get free. This is what you need to do. You need to fight these people. You need to do whatever. And so I'm going to reject this idea that churches were always just bad. Our ancestors were just like, okay, we're just going to do this new thing because we don't have no power. We don't have no say. But no, they were being strategic. And I think some of us are still trying to use these places to be strategic in our own ways, because that's how we were taught to be strategic. So the mass conversion to Christianity actually happened not so much because of slave owners and masters, but because of missionaries. So slave owners didn't really see Black folks as human enough to practice Christianity. It was the missionaries coming in, convincing slave owners that Christianity was needed. Christianity is what would keep them in line. It would keep the enslaved Africans in line. It would make sure that they listened to them. And the missionaries' goal was to just convert as many people to Christianity as possible. So they had to actually convince slave owners to then practice Christianity, like see them as human enough to practice Christianity. And it'll be good for you because there's things in here that say like, obey your master. So it works for all of us. And so that's kind of how it happened. So there's a lot of things at play here. Of course, some of it was assimilation, but some of it was just strategic. Some of it was, well, what do I have to lose by practicing this thing? Some of it was I'm wanting to learn how to read, and now I'm studying the Bible, and now I'm learning, right? So, there's stories in the Bible of being enslaved and getting free. We know the Jewish people and Moses, right? So I can understand why our ancestors were able to, or use the Bible to see themselves as a tool. Gonna check the chat. Just to make sure y'all good. Do people actually use voodoo to harm others? I'm from a Maroon community, and while we have a mother who performs healing, there are other folks who use it to do harm. Yes, there are, of course, people use voodoo to do harm. People can use anything to do harm. I can use my knife to do harm, or I can use it to cut a piece of lamb that I want. So yes, people do use it to do harm. I think the issue is that we only talk about the harm. We make it seem like it is only used to do harm, and we know that anything can be used for anything. And so the problem is that we only discuss and we only see the negative aspects of these religions when they weren't created to be quote unquote used as evil. They were created to heal and to liberate and to make sure that we're well and living lives within our destiny, taking care of ourselves and taking care of our community. Oldest church in the world is in Ethiopia, Ashe. Anaya says, I had a professor say that they use Christianity as a tool for liberation. Some of our ancestors absolutely did. My question is related to Ifa. When we select our Ori and our destiny, do we get to have some sort of preview of what our lives on earth are going to be like? What qualifiers allow us to choose our destiny? That's a really great question, and I do not know the answer. For those who don't know, though, our Ori, O-R-I, is our head. Some people don't like the term of calling it our higher self, but it is the Orisha of us. It is our God essence, right? That is our Ori. And in Ifa, they say that before you come into the earth, before you come into the world, you actually choose your destiny. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna study hoodoo at this point. I'm gonna choose this mama, this daddy. I'm gonna be Juju Bay at this time. I'm gonna teach this class on, February 24th. And this is gonna be a part of my destiny. So, but yeah, I don't know. That's a question for God, I think. That's a great question. I don't know what qualifiers. I don't know if we're able to see, because a lot of times we don't remember our destinies. We don't remember anything. We come to the world and we're like, why is all this happening to me? Why? I didn't sign up for this. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I did sign up. Maybe I did. Which Psalms were mentioned? I just mentioned Psalm 144 because I love that Psalm in particular. It's a Psalm about victory. So yes, I just mentioned that particular Psalm. But Miss McNally said there are no qualifiers. You select before you descend to here. Ashe. LOL, damn, mess me up right now. Listen, LaShawn. Same. Same. Okay. So demonization of ATRs, this has come up a little bit. So why were they demonized? You sitting here, Juju, you talking about healing and liberation and all this good stuff and being in community. So why would they be demonized? Well, baby, captured Africans having a connection to their ancient practices was a threat. That is a direct threat to a colonizer. If I'm a colonizer, why would I want you to still be thinking about where you used to be, the God you used to serve, the people that you used to be around, what makes you feel good, happy, and jolly, what is connecting you to your destiny? I don't want you to have any of that. So I'm going to make sure that you know that what you're practicing is evil. Y'all doing this stuff I don't understand. You're speaking in languages I don't understand. You're praying in ways I don't understand. You're dancing. You're doing all this. You're emoting. You're crying. You're getting possessed. You're using medicines I don't know. That's a threat to me. So I'm going to make sure that I erase all of that and get in your mind and tell you that that's not good, right? Emotive praising. What I mean by emotive is, African. I don't know if you ever seen African church on TV, but even if you ever seen a Kosher church or a Baptist church, or one that's, whatever. Emotive is expressive praying, expressive movement, expressive ways to connect to spirit. That is seen, or from a colonizer standpoint, that would be seen as very primal. Why are you not sitting up straight? Why are you not being, cordial and calm and praying to spirit in a, particularly graceful way? You're doing all this stuff. So we're cutting that off. Again, it's important to strip people of their indigenous culture to dehumanize them. So through that dehumanization and demonization of ATRs, people who have descended from Africa, aka Black folks, today have been indoctrinated to be distrusting of ancient religious practices, to say that's archaic, that doesn't work anymore, that's not good. that can't help us anymore. That's evil. That's juju, right? If you've heard the term juju outside of calling me juju, like it's typically going to be something bad. People say juju is it's negative. It's dark magic. It's evil magic. And so then on top of that, we have the media also showcasing our religions as scary, evil, and quote unquote dark. For example, villains consistently practicing voodoo. Why are the villains the ones practicing voodoo? And this is a clip from Princess and the Frog. So even as early as Disney, this is a Disney movie. So even as early as Disney, young children are seeing this voodoo practitioner being evil. He is the villain in the show. So now, whether I'm thinking about it cognitively or not, I'm gonna see voodoo as evil because the villain is evil. If you watch, what was the show with Angela Bassett, the popular witch show? It's y'all know the show. I can't remember, but she practiced. She was Marie Laveau, and I wouldn't particularly say her character was evil. Marie Laveau wasn't evil in the show, but how they showcased her, even the mood that was around Marie Laveau, the lighting that changed when she was doing voodoo, it was always had a scary element to it. So of course people are going to see these practices as evil and scary. It makes sense why they would. Yes, American Horror Story Coven, thank you. Yes, I'm HS. Thank y'all. So that's why we have this demonization of our practices. And it takes a lot to unlearn. It takes a lot to unlearn. And even as a practitioner, I will admit sometimes, not so much anymore, but even within the past 2 years, I would say, there were still moments where I'm like, is this devil? Like, and I know that it's not, but I've been told so much that these things are evil that sometimes you're like, whoa, this is a weird thing happening around me. Like, is this demonic? So it's natural to go through that, but we have to remember that's not true. That's a lie, right? Those are lies. I just thought this was funny. The faith when white people, or I guess the fifth, when white people are mastering spiritual practices that their colonialist ancestors tried to extinguish from your lineage, and you are still processing the shame and pride of your roots, right? So we see a lot of times white folks really profiting off of this work. They selling the spell kits and the witch kits and Sephora, and they got the sage bundles, and they're doing the Om and the yoga and all of that. So they are mastering all these spiritual practices that are not indigenous to white folks, to European work, European magic, right? But it's indigenous to Black and brown people. So they're over here flourishing. Meanwhile, it was y'all ancestors that told my ancestors that I can't even practice this. So now I'm trying to unlearn and decolonize to remind myself that what I want to do is not evil. It's just a whole cycle. So I just was like, LOL, let me add this meme. Okay, so, we could, So this is a quick video that I want to show, not the full thing, but this is Bishop C.H. Mason. He is the founder of the Kojic Church. Now, for some Kojics in the house, I wasn't Kojic, but this ain't on the Kojic website is what I'm trying to say. Now, people know that Bishop Mason was a root worker. So, I mean, he worked with plants. He worked with herbs and roots to be able to deal with issues in life, physical, spiritual, mental issues. And he also allegedly used them to divine. We talked about divination. So he was a diviner. He used tools to divine. He believed in plants and roots. He believed in possession of the body. He believed body being a host for spirit. And so that's why the Kojic Church kind of has this rap of being like real, like emotive, very extra, beautifully extra in church spaces, because the founder was rooted in that practice. The founder believed in that. The founder was really connected to his African roots and knew that there was nothing wrong with being emotive and expressive in a church space. There was nothing wrong with possession. There was nothing wrong with divination. Now, I'm sure the Kojic Church is not divining or doing things like that, but there's a lot of things that's acceptable in Kojic spaces that may not be acceptable in other Christian spaces, but it's because it's rooted in this particular kind of lineage. So I just want to honor Bishop Mason and show a clip.
Thank God for the one that Jesus, thy will be in us all. Hallelujah.
So
God's anointing given you and you and I to call.
Born to former slaves, Charles Harrison Mason defied the customs and conventions of the time and place in which he lived to start one of the world's largest Christian Pentecostal denominations. Even at a young age, C.H. Mason was seized with a religious fervor so intense that it would cause him to be bedridden as he pondered God's purpose and plan for him and this world. Although his younger days were more often filled with the labor of a sharecropper than with attending any formal school, he was somehow able to teach himself to read and write. At the age of 18, Mason attended Arkansas Baptist College. It was there that Mason became concerned with what he perceived as an attempt by some African American Baptist churchgoers at assimilating the more staid worship style of their white counterparts. The shouting, movement, and passion that was such an integral part of the Black religious experience was fading fast, and Mason felt strongly that this unique expression of faith must be preserved. As a Baptist preacher in Mississippi, Mason began conducting revivals with Charles Price Jones, a fellow believer in the concept of holiness. Because of their teaching of this holiness doctrine, Mason and Jones were expelled from the Baptist Church. It was in 1897 that Mason and Jones established the Church of God in Christ in Lexington, Mississippi. This new church continued to grow, but there would be one more fundamental change in C.H. Mason's belief system. In 1907, a unique religious movement was taking place in the far west city of Los Angeles, California.
Just because we're a little quick on time, I want to stop there, but hopefully that's showing you now. Where is the, I done lost the daggone. Hold on one second, y'all. I want to make sure I find the presentation. Here we go. All right, cool. Can y'all see that? Should be able to. All right. So again, I just wanted to show you all how pivotal and how important Bishop Mason starting the Kojic Church was for really continuing on this connection of ATR and ADR. Again, this is still Christianity. It's still been touched by Western colonization, but there is an innate Africanness to it that we can still see to this day. Like I've been saying this whole time, we ain't lost, we ain't lost nothing. So why does all this matter now? Because the connection to the past is very, very important in ATRs and ADRs. Our ancestors are so important. Our elders are so important. What they did to survive is so important. And to see that a lot of these religions, even though many have been lost, there are still some today that are surviving. So they survived pre-colonization, pre-colonialism, and post-colonialism. That's some powerful stuff. We also, we are able to affirm the feelings of those and experiences of those who transition. If you are a Black person, you come from people who have been through a lot of shit. Excuse my language. I ain't asked if I could cuss on here. So we should be and can still affirm those experiences that our ancestors went through. A lot of them died traumatized, but because they didn't go anywhere, we can talk to them. We can say, you didn't deserve to live a life like that. I'm going to live a life where I'm able to receive the blessings that you were not able to get, right? Because healing with our ancestors, healing through spirit, it heals us. We are ancestors, as I started this out saying. So we can heal our lineage. People say 7 generations behind and 7 generations forward in time when we heal ourselves, right? It is a form of resistance. It shows us what spiritual resistance can look like. It connects us to divinity. It connects us to God or goddess or whatever idea of divinity that you have. It's accessible. We all have ancestors. You don't need a priest, a mambo, a root worker, a reader, or anyone to tell you and give you permission to start to work with your ancestors or pray to your ancestors or venerate your ancestors because they're yours. You are the priest of that journey because they are your ancestors. So this is an accessible practice. And really it just creates clarity on our life and our journeys and our destiny. We all need a little bit of extra help. We know that we can go to divination. We know that we can go to elders or community or people who are part of these spaces and get clarity in our lives so that we can live the best life that we came here to live, okay? So some takeaways. So if you are a descendant of African people, if you're Black, Know that you have ancestors who practice very, very rich religions and carried cultural practices that are still relevant for you today. You are your ancestors. It is your birthright to explore and make sense of the past, to heal your present, and to carry on a legacy in the future. It's giving big sound cool for vibes. We have been given tools to navigate our lives. We are not out here with nothing, y'all. I know it feels like that a lot of times, but we really aren't out here with nothing. We have things, right? And so these ATRs and ADRs helps us tap into those things that we have, those tools that we have. So African traditional and diaspora religions are about healing, clarity, liberation, and community. Regardless of what anybody else say, it's about those things. It is grounded in those things. So thank you all so much. If you want to follow me on Gram, it's Jujubay, or at A Little Juju Podcast. You can hit me up on my website. It's jujubay.com for any emails, business-related emails or inquiries. And also I'm a Reiki practitioner, so you can book a session there. And if you want to get super deeper into that, you can always follow my Patreon, patreon.com/Jujubay, and get all the good offerings that I have there. Also follow, listen to the podcast. I talk about all these things in depth. I have like 60 something episodes out now, so there's a lot of information. If you are wanting to get more into these traditions, I've interviewed various elders, various traditions. I'm about to interview someone in Vodou. So, you know, we kind of touch into all the different religions, maybe which one may make sense to you or for you. But you always just can start with your ancestors, and that's enough, and they will guide you. Okay. Questions, and thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Do folks have any questions for Juju? I feel like I got a couple of emails so far, people asking questions, Sam. And maybe we can allow folks maybe for the next 2 minutes to ask any questions, and then I can forward you the questions in the chat that people have sent to me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but this is your space, y'all. Like, you can ask. I know it might feel weird. A lot of us don't have our cameras on because it's like 5:54. But you know, now is the time to ask any question. You can direct message it to me, or you can direct message it to Sam if you don't want to put it in the chat. But definitely, you know, share. This is a space for that. Oh, you have a question. Let me populate them for you.
I do see, other than your podcast, what resources would you recommend to learn about hoodoo? On my website, it's jujubay.com. I have a book list. So I would recommend all the books on the book, not all the books, the ones about hoodoo I listed. So just go to my website. There's some good recommendations book-wise up there. Modupe. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Hey, and I've been wondering about how to get more in touch with ADR back home. Because you're Trini, I have an episode about when I went to Trinidad, and I talked about some of the spiritual, I did some research. I went during Carnival. And so because you're Trini, I know you know all about Carnival. So Carnival is a good place to start. Carnival is just one big spiritual fets, like it, but looking at the meanings of why people do Juve, looking at the meanings of the stilt walkers, like these are all spirits. They represent spirits. So you can listen to that episode. I think it was called A Little Trini Juju, where I go into depth about that. But there's also like, just look at the cultural things and customs that you know about being from Trini, and recognize like, hey, this is actually something else. And also, what is it? Shango Baptist is a religion that folks in Trinidad practice. It's Orisha rooted, kind of Ifa rooted, but it's called Shango Baptist. So I would maybe look into that as well. SANGO Baptist. That's a good question. When we choose an ADR, should we choose based off of our lineage, like bloodline, or does it not matter that much? It's a good question. Some of us know our bloodline. Some of us can say, I know I come from, you know, Yoruba people of Nigeria, so I know it makes sense for me to practice Ifa, right? But first of all of us don't have access to knowing that information. And sometimes traditions call us that might not be our direct lineage, but it's what we have access to now that will be helpful to us. So I think it is nice if you do know to choose an ADR based off of your lineage, but what it calls you, what makes sense to you. And again, divination. If it ain't for you, you will go to the priest and they would read the whatever. And if it ain't for you, they would say, this ain't for you. This is not, you need to go try out Vodou, try out something else, but try out Palomayombe, but it might not be this. So I would just see what you feel called to, Robbie, and then go to an elder in the tradition. Is there a difference between Vodou and Vodun? Okay, so that's a good question. This ain't 101. You know a little something. Okay, so Vodun is more of the African version of Vodou. So Vodun is practiced in Dahomey. I think it's of the Dahomean people, and Vodou is more of what is practiced in Haiti. But it's all connected because, again, diaspora, people traveling, people moving. But Vodun is, I think, don't quote me on that, but I think it's the original form of it in Dahomey, of the Dahomey people in West Africa. Are there churches or places where people gather in the DMV area? Maybe Elijah or Christine, I'm not sure of your question. If you want to ask it again, that would be helpful. Because unless you mean literal churches, because I know there's churches in DMV. Question 1, do you need to choose a religion that falls on your bloodline? Okay, we just answered that. How does one start practicing? There's a lot of different ways, but I recommend altars and ancestors first. Going to your ancestors, working with your ancestors, venerating your ancestors, building an altar, which I didn't get into too much, but I talk about it in the podcast. You can always just Google altar building. I have a YouTube channel as well. I forgot. I talk about building an altar and why it's important to build an altar. So I would check that out too. If you just go to YouTube and put in Jujube and altar, it'll probably come up. But yeah, I would start with ancestors. I would start with the land. I would start with just praying outside, and just getting sort of grounded in a spiritual practice of some sort, and you will be guided. How do you know if an ATR DTR is for you? I think I sort of answered that. Whatever you feel called to, led to, start with your ancestors. That's always going to be for you, regardless of any other one. But your ancestors will be for you because they are for you. And then the rest will pan out as it does. You can always go to an elder in a tradition, get a reading, etc. if you're interested in more. I have podcasts about it. I interview elders. You can reach out to them, get readings. Trinice has an elder. So, there are people out here who can help guide you and lead you to two different ones. How do ATRs feel about queer folks? I feel weird about being gay and attempting to join the house. That's a very good question. So of course I can't answer how do all ATRs feel about anything because, there's hundreds of thousands. But in my case and specifically, I'm gonna be real with you. People gonna be people. And so I definitely don't want to make ATR seem like it's a complete safe haven from homophobia, from patriarchy, from misogyny, right? Because those things can still impact the spiritual house and people can still be that because people are that. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna sugarcoat that. However, there are houses and there are people and there are babas and iyas who are completely open to that. What I will say is that the spirits, it's more important to people than it is the spirits, right? And sometimes people will say that the spirit said this, and it's just like you have to find a place that will be accepting and loving of you, right? And so it's not ATRs, there's space for you. There is space for you here. And your job is to just find the space that you feel most comfortable in. But yeah, people gonna be people. But yeah, it's space for you. It's space for you. I'm a queer person and hey, I'm here. And there's plenty, I know plenty queer people, trans people, GNC people who is gay. I know gay priests. I know a gay woman, a gay like we in here, okay? Gang, we are here. Agreed. I'm indigenous Ghanaian, but I practice Ifa. Exactly. How do you know how to find the right spiritual leader? You got to feel comfortable with them. Finding an elder is like dating. You need to go on a few dates, aka either get a few readings, see where they at, take some classes with them, see how you feel. It is just like trying to wife somebody up, like, or whatever, somebody up. Like, you want to make sure that they are right for you. So get to know them, ask them questions. That's how you will know a leader is right for you. Trying to find them can be difficult. I say when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. And I'm gonna stick to that. And I know it's kind of an annoying answer, but I truly think when you are ready, you find your people. Spiritual leaders in the DMV area. I mean, there's Maile in Baltimore, not quite the DMV. There are some, it's hard to say, there's Elays everywhere. I know someone who went to an Elay in DC whose experience was fine, but I'm not quite sure I'm comfortable saying, like, there's not really like a list of, and these are, you know, the spiritual leaders in the DMV area. I would say do your research. Facebook, a lot of folks are on Facebook. There's different Facebook groups. There's probably like DMV Orisha, or, you know, there's things out there. So just do your research and your Googles and seeing. Oh, that's all the questions. Boom. Is there any more, Trinice? Is that it?
Those are like all the ones they've emailed so far.
Okay. Cool. Y'all have really great questions. Very, very great questions.
We're so excited, Sam, you know, that you took the time out to spend time with us. I'm actually sending out a survey now because some folks are already requesting a part 2. So I want to be able to show, you know, like colleagues that, you know, students are hungry for this information. They're interested, and we're interested outside of Black History Month, right? We're interested in learning and growing in our traditions. So, you know, on behalf of the center, before Brianna speaks, we just want to say thank you. You know, like, this work is so important to you. A lot of the students here listen to you. They listen to Juju-based podcasts. And I think that's really special that you're able to contribute in this way. And we're so grateful. So just thank you. Y'all shout Juju out. Follow her on Instagram, follow the website, get on her Patreon, YouTube. Like, she's a walking source of information and encyclopedia. And to be so young, she's a guru of this research. So just shout out to bomb-ass Black women who do this work. And I'll kick it over to Bree.
I wasn't going to say much of anything different than that. Then thank you for sharing everything that you have that you've shared with us. Yeah, again, just so grateful to be here. And yeah, make sure you all follow Juju, follow the center as well. And yeah, I hope we can have a part 2.
Yay. Thank everyone. Thank y'all so much. This was really good. I got through time. Like, this is a milestone for me, because I be talking. I got through everything. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, y'all. Follow the center for more events that are happening in March. We're kicking off Women's History Month in the next 2 weeks. So follow our Instagram, follow us at udc.edu/CDIMA, and stay tuned for a part 2. Follow our Instagram to figure out when Juju Bay is gonna be with us next. Take care, y'all.
Bye.
Presentarles a Lisbeth Mateo, una joven que recientemente se convirtió en abogada de inmigración en California y que, debido a su estatus de indocumentada, podía ser deportada.